Hello, and everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Double A Team live stream edition. I'm your host, Stephen Agishi, along with my co-host tonight from the sports blog, Awful Announcing, the associate editor and contributor, Ken Fan. Ken, good evening. Hope you had a wonderful weekend.
It was good, Stephen. Nice to be on with you. And, we got a lot of things to talk about and not much time. So let's get right to it.
Right. Ken is working on some projects with the Awful Announcing on a deadline. So we'll try and run it as much as possible. All right. Obviously, the big story this past weekend. Let's start with the story that's probably very, very close to your heart, Ken. The end of Sports Illustrated. And Ken, as somebody who grew up, reading the magazine, and I also have read the magazine on and off between living here in the States and also living in Japan. I want your feelings and your memories of what Sports Illustrated meant to you.
It's a magazine that I used to subscribe as a kid, Stephen. When I have the ability to get my my own magazine subscriptions when I turned 18. Sports Illustrated was the very first magazine which I subscribed to, and as a kid, you always look forward to the swimsuit issue the first week after Super Bowl. But aside from that, there was great journalism, great writers like Frank DeFord, Curry Kirkpatrick, Peter Gammons wrote there for a time. Great writers. And the fact is, unfortunately, it's in this day and age of instant clicks and everything. Sports Illustrated, unfortunately, could not adjust. I think they started going downhill when they no longer could be a weekly and they went to a monthly. They sold their license to the Arena Group, and the Arena Group, of course, missed a payment. That's why this whole thing came about. I know a couple of people, and as a matter of fact, I was thinking about applying there for a job. Luckily, I did not. The entire staff has been told they have been laid off. There have been people there who will be working for the next 90 days while Arena Group tries to rearrange things.
Yeah.
Let me just say this. When it was in its heyday, you would go to Sports Illustrated as a weekly to see what they had as a to wrap up an event, to get their perspective. People like Peter King, longtime writer, was there. I can remember I can't remember other people off the top of my head, but Curry Kirkpatrick, Frank DeFord was another great writer. You also had Dan Jenkins, who covered golf. There was also that great feature called Faces in the Crowd, which they would have individual people who had local high schoolers or local athletes who would be given like their photograph and a couple of lines about an accomplishment that they did. And you'd always look at that, and then there would be the photography. That they had great photographers. Walter Ayus was great. I also loved reading about their Olympic preview and get their medal predictions, and I used to go through that always. One of the reasons why I got into to focus on the media, because they had a great writer named William Taff who covered media and did a weekly column on media in Sports Illustrated. So it was tremendous. It was great writing, a great magazine. It was originally owned by Time Life. They sold it, of course, a long, long time ago. Sports Illustrated has gone through a lot of different incarnations now. There were also a 24-hour sports network with CNN that was called CNNSI. Would have some of the writers appear along with CNN sports anchors. Lee Montville I remember one used to write for the Boston Globe, and he was there with Sports Illustrated as well. But like I said, when they got to the 21st century, Stephen, things changed. Magazines lost their pertinence because, of course, now we get everything so quickly through the internet. Sports Illustrated then just couldn't adapt to the times, and they've gone through a few different owners now, and there were, when Time Warner got bought out by AOL. Things changed, and that's where you saw the downfall of Sports Illustrated, unfortunately. And now we're to the point where it's most likely going to go away, and I hate to see that because SI had great sports journalism,
Right.
and in a day and age where like ESPN is cutting back on sports journalism from outside the lines in E60, and we
Right.
saw cancellation of Real Sports last month by HBO. There's not many places where we can get great sports journalism. It's up to local newspapers, which of course are going through their own issues as well. So it's going to be tough to find, good writing and excellent reporting. We're an interesting period, Stephen, where clicks are more important and hot takes are more important than long form journalism, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, my memory of Sports Illustrated probably was back in the late '80s when our family moved to the United States. Of course, I could barely read any English at that point. And, once I started to learn English again and was able to read and write and also speak, that's when I started to gain interest in sports. And one of the biggest magazine at the time was Sports Illustrated. And so I started reading sports as a way of improving my English and then also understanding more about the American sports and its culture. And this, along with sporting news, which I've subscribed for a few years, even after I had moved back to Japan, I would always go to a large bookstore in Japan where they would carry a section of foreign books, magazines, and certainly Sports Illustrated was one of the the magazines that I would always look forward to, I would read the articles, which certainly was about a week or maybe even 2 weeks behind, but still that was my way of keeping up with what was going on in America. From thousands and thousands of miles away and on the other side of the ocean. So that Sports Illustrated meant so much to me, despite the fact that I didn't subscribe to the magazine. Again, I used to subscribe to Sporting News for several years after I had moved back to the U.S., from the U.S. to Japan. But Sports Illustrated's impact in the American sports scene and in culture, and the influence it had on many young people who wanted to become a sports journalist or sports media should not be forgotten. And it's unfortunate that, I wrote, at the bottom, American capitalism is literally killing the media outlets both locally and nationally. It's unfortunate that that the private equities have its way of buying these outlets, and then they really have no clue what to do with it, and then just basically bleed the money, and ended up laying off people rather than working with the writers or unions in a way to figure out a way to survive in this economy. I want to share what Pablo Torre had to say last week on the Around the Horn after he won.
I am watching.
Go full screen on that, Stephen.
My former employer, a childhood artifact, an icon to so many of us. And I am filled with rage and depression because Sports Illustrated is not just the foremost journalism brand in the history of sports. It is also sports itself to so many of us. And so what the Arena Group and the Authentic Brands Group have done, handed this organization and all of its history, great writing, iconic covers, photography, just the way that sports was chronicled in America, and running it into the ground without any conscience, using fake writers and also laying off everybody today, is not just a nightmare, it is something that they should never get to forget, because you were handed this institution and you failed, and that is your fault. Absolutely your fault.
Yeah, I totally agree with him. Pablo Torre, had a very good take there. It's just sad to see that Sports Illustrated being mishandled this way. There are people who I grew up reading, like George Plimpton. He would do participatory journalism. He also wrote the great fake article on Sid Finch, who could throw 150 miles an hour and was a New York Mets quote unquote prospect. He wrote that as an April Fool's article back in the 1980s, and it fooled a lot of. At the time, it fooled some New York Mets fans who were hoping that they would indeed have a guy who could throw that fast. But eventually, I mean, if you read closely, the first 8 paragraphs had in the first letter would spell out April Fools. If you looked at that very closely, not everybody did, of course, but it was very funny. But you just look back at some of those great articles. They would even actually write. There would be some international stories as well. I remember reading about Sandoharu Stephen from Sports Illustrated, the great great Japanese baseball player who hit over 800 home runs, the first man to do so, as a matter of fact, before Barry Bonds did. No, not Barry Bonds hasn't done that, but he was the first one to hit over 800 home runs. But it was great to see, great to read. I would always anticipate reading them, going to the mailbox every Thursday. Sometimes it comes Wednesday, and then they had special issues every once in a while to go along. And of course, you couldn't wait for their double issue at the end of the year, the Sports Person of the Year. I would always read that, and of course, the reading the letters, which were always passionate. The letters to the editor section. I always wrote a letter to the editor. You never got it published, but it was just great to read stuff like that. But just like Pablo Torre, Stephen, I lament the end of Sports Illustrated. Like I said, it hasn't been the same going back to the last 20 years. I just certainly hope that there's a way to get the license agreed upon between the Arena Group and the owner of Sports Illustrated, and whether we can actually. I don't think it'll ever be come back to what it once was. But we need the brand. We need writers. We need sports journalism, and I certainly hope down the road that someone can find a way to rescue that brand. It's another part of our childhood, Stephen, that goes away, that dies, and you hate to see something like this happen, especially to a great brand and a great tradition of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, I think it speaks volume about the American capitalism if an institution like Sports Illustrated is killed and unsalvageable. I think this should be served as a wake up call for all journalists and all media people who are still kind of struggling to find their own niche or find its own footing. This needs to be served as a wake up call to everybody associated. And maybe you might want to think twice about getting yourself involved with the private equity firms who are only in it for the profits, and that they don't have any know-how, and that the fact that they would destroy an institution or brand like Sports Illustrated so easily should infuriate a lot of people, and the people who are behind this, all the nonsense about what they have been doing the recent months, using AI using AI to write stories and fake identities. There was one AI article or AI fake identity of an Asian American woman who happen to be, false. So this is a huge wake up call. We've been seeing some sloppy journalism using AIs and stuff of that nature. So we definitely need authenticity in media and the people who are involved in it. So hopefully this should serve as a moment of truth where all of us look at ourselves in the mirror and ask tough questions.
Right, 100%. And this year is going to be quite interesting, Stephen, as we go into transition from, as we see as I mentioned, the loss of E60 outside the lines as a regular programming for ESPN, the loss of Real Sports from HBO, and now the downfall of Sports Illustrated. So it's going to be a transition year. We don't know who's going to perform, but we'll just have to wait and see what's going on.
Absolutely. All right, let's transition into the another big story over the weekend is the NFL Divisional playoffs. Let's look at each of the games Saturday. First up, Ravens ended the Texans Cinderella season, 34-10. Baltimore. You obviously are familiar with Baltimore as a Browns fan, and Lamar Jackson certainly put on a show. And, looks like the game really solidified his chance of winning another MVP. In your opinion, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, Lamar Jackson's one of those. He's a Swiss Army knife, Stephen. He is not your typical, passer. He goes back and he just throws it. He can use his legs, and we saw him several times against the Houston Texans defense. Stop on a dime, turn around, break ankles for the Houston Texans defense, and then right when you think you have him tackled, he runs for another 10 yards. He's just that good. It still boggles my mind that when he was a free agent, no one wanted to sign him. The Baltimore Ravens got him pretty much, and why it took so long for the Baltimore Ravens to sign him. Great quarterback. I hate the fact that he's in my division, Steven. He's a guy that is just so good and just can do so many things. He's going to have to go against Kansas City, which we'll talk about in a second. But he's not a drop back passer like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes can run himself, but he only runs as a last second. Lamar Jackson can go a quarterback draw. You can just design a play for him, and he can just go out there and do something and use his legs and be a tremendous weapon. We saw that on Saturday. I mean, you saw a little bit rust on the Ravens. They were the Texans had a chance to go ahead at right before the half, 13-10, but then the Ravens, at the second half, came in and pretty much did what we thought they would do to the Texans and pretty much run the table. And that's exactly what they did. CJ Stroud has nothing, and the D'Amico Ryans had nothing to be to hang their head on. The Texans did a great job, but when you grow against a buzzsaw like the Baltimore Ravens, you're going to have to get them down early. When you miss a field goal right before the halftime and don't get the job done, you had I mean, you're happy when you're going tied at halftime, Stephen, 10-10. But when the Ravens get the ball first thing on the right at the first spot, you got to stop them, and they didn't do that. And then that's pretty much put the Ravens right on target, and they pretty much were pretty much cruised from then on in, from there to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a rather, when the score was 10-10 after that punt return for a touchdown, the momentum kind of, died for Ravens, and you could tell inside the stadium that the momentum or the crowd noise just completely went away. But the Ravens' resiliency really paid off here. Offense and defense. Lamar was efficient. The numbers doesn't do it justice, but he was again very, very efficient. both with his arm and the legs. There's nothing to be ashamed of for the Texans. They were 3-13-1 a year ago, and to be able to finish 10-7 and get to the playoffs by winning the AFC South, which I think a lot of people thought that it was Jacksonville's to lose. It's quite an accomplishment for D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud. I think their future is very bright. Certainly, they don't have a first-round pick this year because they gave up one to Arizona to move up to pick both Stroud and Will Anderson in the draft last year. So very, very curious to see what the Texans are able to do this offseason. Certainly, they could get more weapons for CJ Stroud. They could also get another pass rusher in case Jonathan Greenard ends up leaving as a free agent. So there's going to be some holes that Texans have to fill in order to become a another not just a flash in the pan, but like a legitimate contender that they've been kind of unable to sustain a lot of success in recent years. They've kind of fallen off the cliff since 2015, 2016, around that time, when J.J. Watt and Deshaun Watson was at the helm. So hopefully this time, I think Houston, with a better front office, has a staying power, and it will be very, very interesting to see where they go in 2024. If this year was an indication, I think Texans are going to be around and going to be a major problems for AFC opponents moving forward. All right, let's move on to the other game, the big one. The 49ers barely got by the Packers on Saturday night. And, boy, this was a real great game. And as a Bears fan, it pains me to say that the Packers were just very, very close. And they actually put, they should have won that game. And I'm not going to lie. They should have won that game. But I think the momentum changed when Anders Carlson missed a 41-yard field goal.
Yep.
And instead of 7 points, the game stayed at 4 points. Excuse me. By the way, Carlson has missed his share of field goals this year, as a rookie. And it's unfortunate that, the kicker is being mentioned when, he gets the wrong type of attention whenever he misses a field goal of that magnitude. And I got to tell you, the 49ers' resiliency really stood out. Brock Purdy wasn't pretty. He looked like, I don't know if he was hurt or just basically just didn't have the confidence to throw the ball in a pretty wet, slick conditions. But even without Deebo Samuel gone, in the middle of the game, 49ers just found a way, and they proved to me, Ken, that they are definitely why they are number one seed, and they're a Super Bowl favorites on that game.
Well, I'm going to say this. If the Niners play like that against the Detroit Lions, they're going to get beat up and they're going to lose. Brock Purdy didn't play very well, as you mentioned. He did get the job done on the final drive, and it's not how you start, Steven, it's how you finish. We all know that. But Purdy, there are some passes. Again, it could be rust. It could be the fact they didn't play. They didn't play. They had a bye week, but still, I was not impressed by the way that the Niners played. Again, Kyle Shanahan with some very questionable calls. I don't understand when you have Christian McCaffrey and he's running all over the place and the Packers can't stop him. Why you don't run him when you have the chance? And instead you throw the ball 3 times for a 3 and out, and you don't have your weapons. I mean, yes, you have George Kittle. As you mentioned, Samuel was out. But again, you have Christian McCaffrey. Run the ball. Run the ball. Again, Kyle Shanahan, and this is the reason why Fox brought up a stat that during his tenure as coach, when he's down by 5 or more points going into the second half, Kyle Shanahan until Saturday was 0-30. 0-30 because Kyle Shanahan refuses to do he wants to get cute, and he thinks he's smarter than everybody else in the whole room. I'm going to have a hot take here. Kyle Shanahan will never win a Super Bowl. I'm going to say that right now. I don't think he'll ever win a Super Bowl. He is just that type of coach. Now, he's going to watch the San Francisco 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. But now that I say that, but I just don't think he gets too cute for his own good. And he just doesn't. Again, we go back to when he was the offensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons and they were down 28-3 to the New England Patriots. I could go on that forever. But let me just say this. There are times when he just gets too cute and he just thinks, okay, I know everybody else. I'm an offensive genius. I'm going to do it this way. And look, I hope he learned a lesson from this game. I really do. I hope he did. And he gets the job done, and he just does, instead of trying to get too cute, uses his weapons the right way. But I don't know. Sometimes coaches just fall into that old trap, and I just think that Kyle Shanahan just does this way too often. That was why he was 0-30 as a 49ers coach, down 5 points every time he's in the up. Every time he was down 5 points at halftime, now he's 1-30. Okay. Let's see if he can actually do a better coaching job against the Detroit Lions.
And speaking of the Lions, they outlasted the pesky Buccaneers yesterday on the Sunday afternoon matinee, and it was a very exciting game. Very competitive from start to finish. Two quarterbacks with a lot of a chip on their shoulders. Jared Goff of the Lions, Baker Mayfield of the Buccaneers, and I must say, both quarterbacks really shined and proved their worth, and it led to a very entertaining game, and certainly, the Lions are making their trip to the NFC Championships for the first time since 1992. So 30 plus years, and they're heading to San Francisco next to this Sunday in a late game. I got to tell you, as a Bears fan, we gave the Lions a real hard time. Basically, should have won both games, except we blew the game. The one in late November, just after Thanksgiving, that really still angers me. Just how bad the Bears botched the lead up in Detroit. But I got to tell you, as somebody who lived in that city for about, only 6 months, and that's when Dan Campbell took over, from him becoming a butt of a joke to, being embraced by the city and basically epitomizes the city, kind of like when Mike Ditka took over the Chicago Bears back in 1982, and the city and the team and the fans really embraced his coaching style and vice versa. And I see the similarity with that. And, Dan Campbell, still may have, some craziness and, fourth down gambles that might be a lot of questionable ones, but there's no question Dan Campbell is a Detroit Lion through and through. And, he loves coaching that team. He's a believer, and the city and the franchise has been all transformed under him, and this was a real coming out party for the Detroit Lions, Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone who knows watched Baker Mayfield when he was with the Browns, this is the type of quarterback I've been waiting for. Of course, he didn't have the weapons. He did some great things over in Cleveland, but not like this, Stephen. He's having fun out there, and I'm glad to see it. Here's a guy who gave his heart and soul to the Cleveland Browns when he was there. Basically was a cast-off in Carolina. But now to see him having fun in Tampa and having an opportunity to bring them to get the tying score. Unfortunately, he threw a pick. And I know that as soon as he let it go, he knew it was a bad throw. The Carolina Panthers were down by 8 points, down by one score. And that's how the game ended. But as you mentioned, Detroit, I'm happy to see it. I know that it pains you as an NFC North division rival, but the Detroit Lions, they've been down way too long, Stephen. It's great to see something like this. The NFC North has a chance to be one of the best divisions next season, and if the Bears can get going and do a lot of improvements, I'd love to see that division. Have a three-way rivalry between the Packers, your Bears, and the Lions. It'd be great to see, Steven. It's the old NFL going back to the 1960s and the black and blue division, and of course the Vikings get going too. They could they could have the potential for being the NFL's best division. But Dan Campbell, as you mentioned, he's got the locker room believing in him. You've got Aiden Hutchinson, a Michigander. He was in at Michigan. He did a great job on defense on Sunday. He sacked Baker Mayfield twice. It's just fun to watch. That's a fun. I know you hate to see it, Steven, but it's a fun. It is a fun thing to watch, and I really think that they are a physical team. I think that offensive line can do very well against San Francisco. I know they have Bosa. I know they have a lot of great players on that defense on San Francisco, but I think Detroit offensive line can take and handle San Francisco next week. And I think it's going to be a very tough matchup for San Francisco. Matchups are always important in the NFL, as we all know. And I think Detroit matches up very well against the 49ers.
And I agree. Quick look at the Buccaneers. They had a very good season, and once again, very bad NFC South division. But to be able to win the year shortly, year after post Tom Brady has to be very, very impressive. Kudos to Jason Light, their general manager. Todd Bowles, obviously has taken his lumps, but he's done a very good job with the Buccaneers. I think he's definitely found a home. Certainly, they have a lot of players that are free agents. Notably Mike Evans. What are they going to do with him? Baker Mayfield is a free agent as well. Certainly, they want to bring him back and maintain their continuity. Certainly, it's going to be a very, very challenging offseason for a team that is well above the salary cap. I have to figure out a way to shed some salaries. Certainly, going to look a lot different, but. Give a lot of credit to Tampa Bay for being able to win the division and give, Lions a run for their money till the very, very end. It was a very entertaining game from start to finish, and very interesting to see what the Buccaneers will look like this offseason because the AFC, Carolina needs a new coach. Atlanta's getting a new coach. New Orleans is certainly. Not exactly a juggernaut. They're always over the cap, and Dennis Allen, the head coach, is exactly not exactly somebody that puts a fear in anyone. So, will be very interesting. How long can Tampa Bay can maintain their dominance in that division moving forward? Now, the final game of yesterday is the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, and once again, the Chiefs eliminated the Buffalo Bills, and watching the game here in Kansas City was a very, very close, entertaining game. The game itself, as well as the shenanigans we saw in the stands with Jason Kelsey and Taylor Swift, was just as entertaining. And Chiefs once again was a major roadblock for the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills went through so much this year with the firing of Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, and then shortly after there was a piece on Sean McDermott comparing and praising the 9/11 jihadists or Al Qaeda's for their so-called teamwork, and got a lot of flack, but the team stood by. They withstood. They beat the Dolphins on the final game of the regular season to win the division. They were the second seed, and then just like that, they're done. I don't know what else there to say, Ken.
Well, that defense was decimated.
Yes.
They really had to have they really needed they really needed the ball control to keep the ball out of the hands of Patrick Mahomes. For a while, it was the lead changes were just going crazy there for in the third quarter, but then it settled down. Josh Allen who had made some great decisions, started making some bad passes. I think he got tired at the end. I don't know what Kansas City was doing when they fumbled the ball out of bounds during the at the last minute. You had Pacheco, who was running very well. You didn't hand the ball to him, and again, some decisions there. Andy Reid sometimes makes some very funny decisions, and of course, we go back to your former coach there, Matt Nagy, who was the offensive coordinator. I know you have issues with Matt Nagy, but I have to say that Kansas City's offensive plan was very good yesterday. Patrick Mahomes didn't throw for 300 yards, Steven. He threw for like 215. That was a very balanced attack. It was run, pass. It was pretty much equal. You also had a defense, which when it had to make stops for the Chiefs, they did. And then again, I just don't know what to say for the Buffalo fans. They see another field goal go wide right. That's just terrible. Again, I feel for the Buffalo Bills fans. They go through heartache every single year. I thought this was going to be the year that they would be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs because they were at home.
Yeah.
But again, something about the Chiefs that they're resilient, and they're a reason why that they're the NFL's best team, Steven. Why they were a Super Bowl champion. They know how to win. Everyone thought, okay, Mahomes is going to be on the road for the first time. But he got the job done. There was that run that he made down the left sideline that he just kept running, and it took a while for the Bills to tackle him or just push him out of bounds. But he's a guy. He's very smart out there, Steven. He knows what to do, and I have to say, Baltimore and Kansas City is going to be a fun game next Sunday. It's going to be an interesting game. You've got two great quarterbacks.
Yep.
You've got two excellent defenses. For me, that's a pick 'em game. I really have. I mean, Baltimore's got to be favored slightly because they're at home, but you also have the factor that the Chiefs are coming in. They've got a lot of pride. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to win that game. It's not going to be pretty for them. Their wins are never pretty. This season, they have not been the same team that as in the past, where they can just run over you and just do. It's not like last season when they could just get on the horse and just ride that offensive horse and have the offensive weapons there. They don't have the same receivers as they've had in the past, Steven. They have Pacheco, who's a great runner. But at the same time, that defense, they know how to make stops. Chris Jones is a great player on defense. So it's going to be a fun game next Sunday between Baltimore and Kansas City. I would have loved to see Buffalo win it. I don't know, to be honest with you, Steven. They're a team, as you want to talk about cap space, they're going to have a lot of issues coming into the season for 2024. Josh Allen isn't getting any younger. There were times, I mean, for basically when they were 6-6, Steven, they had to go every game was a playoff game. And I think they just ran out of gas yesterday. And I hate to see it. And I don't know how long Buffalo, everyone talks about the window closing. I still think it's open a crack. It's open a very little crack. But they've got to take advantage of that next season. Otherwise, it may not happen for this edition and incarnation of the Bills, because they've got a lot. I can see last night that they were just shell shocked by the way they lost, and I feel for them and I feel for the fans.
Yeah, this was their biggest opportunity. Both the Chiefs and the Bills, they were kind of heading in opposite directions. Both teams, the Chiefs and the Bills faced each other in Kansas City last month, and then we all remember the lateral that was completely, taken over, and Mahomes going berserk on the sidelines, and the Christmas game against the Raiders where Travis Kelce threw a helmet on the sidelines, and the frustrations were just basically building it up, and there weren't that many good feelings about the Chiefs entering the playoffs, but this is who they are. Um, with all the problems offensively, their defense has really, really kept them close in every game this year. This is probably their best defense that the Chiefs have had in their, playoff runs. Chris Jones was amazing. He had a contract dispute this year to start the year and probably missed a handful of games to start the year. Obviously, this is probably going to be his last run with the Chiefs. And, he's leading the defense, really a huge player, mostly a defensive tackle playing the edge position a lot, several times pressuring Josh Allen and disrupting him a lot yesterday. I think, Travis Kelce looked like the same old Travis Kelce, catching 2 touchdown passes. Even Martez Valdez-Scantling had 2 big catches, a guy who couldn't catch a ball to save his own life. And then the guy who was probably getting close to being run out of town anyway, certainly came up big yesterday. Patrick Mahomes, what can you say? He's got the Bills numbers. And when you have the Bills numbers, that means you have the upper hand on Josh Allen. And obviously, as great as Josh Allen is, he will never be considered the greatest until he can, beat Patrick Mahomes. A lot of the quarterbacks, they had to overcome Tom Brady in the AFC. Certainly, that was Patrick Mahomes. He had to go through his own growing pains. Obviously, when Tom Brady was gone, and it was easy for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to slide into that spot there. But now Mahomes is the Brady of this generation now. So guys like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and then host of others. They're the ones that who are going to have to fight tooth and nails against each other to overcome to get to that Super Bowl now. And this Sunday, it's going to be a very, very great game. Certainly, the road game against the Buffalo was not a cakewalk, but it certainly was a confidence builder. And then the one that we can finally put to rest that Patrick Mahomes obviously has never played a road playoff games until yesterday. Certainly, yesterday's game put that to the rest, and they should have no problem going into Baltimore once again. And play the Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. So it's going to be a very interesting game. Baltimore has never hosted the AFC Championships, dating back to the old Baltimore Colts days before they packed up and left for Indianapolis. So it's going to be a very, very interesting atmosphere down in Baltimore with the Ravens. Certainly, I think the winner of the Ravens-Chiefs game will put themselves closer and might be actually a favorite to entering the Super Bowl. So, Ken, what's your pick on the AFC Championship game?
They're the champions until they get knocked out. I'm going to say Kansas City wins very close. I'm going to say they win by a field goal, just like they did on Sunday, Stephen. I think that Baltimore, they're an unknown quantity right now. They have had their opportunities before. Lamar Jackson has had his opportunities before, and he hasn't kicked the door in. Until they do that, Kansas City knows how to win, as you mentioned. They are the champs for a reason, Stephen. They showed that they can win on the road. They showed that they have the mental toughness. They didn't collapse yesterday.
Right.
They had a chance, and when the Buffalo crowd was really loud, Patrick Mahomes did his job, and it didn't bother him. And as you mentioned, all of a sudden those receivers, they were dropping passes left and right during the regular season. I didn't see a drop yesterday. I did not see a drop. Travis Kelce, as you mentioned, you didn't see that the issues that were. There was a reason why Kadarius Toney was a scratch yesterday. Maybe there was a reason. I don't know what that reason was, but he wasn't in the game, and maybe it was because of the fact that Andy Reid didn't trust him, or maybe it was a physical issue. But those drops that were plaguing the Chiefs during the regular season, they didn't happen yesterday, and I don't think they're going to be happening on Sunday. I do think that the Chiefs will eke out a win against Baltimore by a field goal, whether it's a missed field goal like Baltimore. I mean, they got Justin Tucker, who's the greatest kicker of all time. But unless somehow I say Kansas City wins by a field goal. I think they win by a last-second field goal, and I think that they go to the Super Bowl. I hate to say, I don't mind saying it because Baltimore will suffer. I don't mind saying that at all.
Yeah, living in Kansas City, I think the renewed confidence in the Chiefs has been restored, and I do agree. I think the Chiefs are peaking once again at the right time. They know the experience and the to handle difficulties, adversities. Certainly their offense is not 100% just yet. I think there's going to be moments in time where they're going to get get dominated at the line of scrimmages. Certainly, a lot of the receivers, came out, really performed well yesterday. Going to be very interesting to see if they can maintain their composure and their focus going on another tough road environment in Baltimore. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs again. Like you said, until they're knocked out, they're still the champs. And yesterday they proved it. So I'm going to go 27-24 Chiefs on the road. NFC, Lions versus 49ers. The Lions are a road team. Certainly they're physical. The way the Packers dominated them against the 49ers bodes well, for a team that is traveling from the Midwest. And, the weather shouldn't be a problem, hopefully. This is going to be a very interesting game, especially if 49ers don't have Deebo Samuel in the game. They have Aiden Hutchinson who can, disrupt the quarterback's timing and, in the backfield as well. But again, I think being at home and very acclaimed to the time zone and the weather, I am definitely going to give the 49ers an edge in this one. But I wouldn't be shocked if the game is very, very close or tied late in the fourth quarter, because the Lions' defense and running game is able to keep them in the game. Jared Goff is somebody who's played against the 49ers in San Francisco many times. When he was with the Rams, he went to University of California at Berkeley, so he's familiar with the environment in that city as well. Certainly, Jared Goff isn't somebody who's going to be scared or flinched playing in that environment. But I think 49ers is home, and then their staying power is going to help them get to the Super Bowl as an NFC representative. I'm going to pick maybe 31-27 49ers win, Ken.
I'm going to go the other way, Steven. I think Detroit, as I mentioned, can be very physical against the San Francisco 49ers. I think that, as you mentioned, Hutchinson is a great disruptor. I think the offensive line by Detroit can be very physical against the Niners. I still think there are questions about Brock Purdy. Is he a game manager? Sure. I mean, every quarterback's a game manager. I mean, let's face it. I mean, they're all. It's not a bad thing to be a game manager. But I will say that Jared Goff has something to prove. He wants to go back to the Super Bowl. He wants to show the Los Angeles Rams that, hey, this is what you did. We all think that Matthew Stafford was a great story and it was the right move to make. But I think Jared Goff has a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to be the better quarterback on Sunday. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. And I'm going to say that the Detroit Lions are going to win 30-23 over the San Francisco 49ers.
It's going to be a very interesting Sunday games. And, I think the fans are winners because no matter who wins, I think it's going to be a very, very compelling Super Bowls. And, each of the four teams certainly have made their case to be there in Super Bowl in February in Las Vegas. And it's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. And hopefully there's something that, we can discuss again next weekend on our live stream broadcast. Well, Ken's very busy, so we're going to cut it off short this week. But thank you very much for joining us once again. Follow us on X. You can see our Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen that is scrolling, and on our YouTube channel, which we've linked to the Ken's original channel, which we might definitely convert it into our own the AA team channel down the road as well. So once again, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we hope to have you on again next week. We're sorry we have to cut it short, but hopefully you all enjoyed our broadcast, and hope to see you next week when we look back at the NFL Championship weekend and the Super Bowl the Super Bowl teams are determined. Good night, everybody.
Good night, and we'll see you. And don't forget, as Stephen mentioned, follow us both on Twitter. And of course, we'll be back again. I think we should be back again next Monday, Stephen. I think we'll call it. Let's call it. We'll be back again next Monday night. So we hope to see you then, and follow us both on our Twitter channels, because you'll see the live stream on both our Twitter feeds at that time. Thank you very much for joining us, people.